Hi everyone, welcome back to session 2 of this very important chapter called the living world. What is that very important process which enables the continuity of the species generation after generation? Until and unless the bud is completely developed, it remains attached to the parent body. Very important characteristic feature called metabolism. All of us, right from my beginning of this class, I am telling how advantageous it is to be a multicellular. Hi everyone. Welcome back to session 2 of this very important chapter called the living world. Hope you remember in my first session of this very interesting chapter called the living world, we studied about what is biology. Biology is nothing but the study of living organisms and their processes. And we also came across that the living organism exhibits certain characteristic features like what? Like growth and development, reproduction, metabolism, cellular organization and consciousness, right? We also discussed about growth. What is growth? Growth is a permanent, irreversible process that is happening in a living organism. What are we going to study in today's session then? As I said, biology is nothing but a very interesting chapter with lot of interesting concepts, and definitely you would like the concepts of this very important chapter of your biology syllabus called the living world. What are we going to discuss in today's session? We are going to discuss about a next very important characteristic feature which is exhibited only by the living organism, that is nothing but called reproduction. Right. So what is the next characteristic feature we are going to discuss about? That is about metabolism, cellular organization and consciousness, right? Let us come across what is this very important characteristic feature called reproduction. All of us know that we come across the continuity of the species generation after generation. What is that which makes the continuity of the species? We are able to see the variety of plants and animals till today. What is that very important process which enables the continuity of the species generation after generation? The answer is reproduction. So reproduction is the only process which enables the continuity of the species generation after generation. But let us understand the correct definition of reproduction. I told you all that is definition is very important. How do we define this word called reproduction then? We define this process called reproduction as a biological process. Why do you call it as a biological process? It is a process which is happening only in the living organism, right? So it is a biological process in which an organism gives rise to its young ones. Young ones are also called as what? Offsprings. And very important, similar to itself. Like begets like. A donkey can give rise to a donkey only and an elephant can give rise to an elephant only, right? So what do you mean by that? Similar to itself. Right. So it is a biological process in which an organism gives rise to young ones or otherwise called offspring similar to itself. Hope you have understood the definition of reproduction. It's a very common term which we come across in our everyday life. But as I said, it is a very important feature of all living organism. So how do we define this word called reproduction? It is a biological process in which an organism gives rise to young ones, that is the offspring similar to itself, and this offspring will further grow, develop, mature and again will carry on the next process of reproduction. So this is a continuous process, right? Now what is this? What is the significance of reproduction? What do you mean by significance? Importance of reproduction. Why it is so very important characteristic feature? Because as I said, it enables the continuity of the species. Imagine if this reproduction would not have taken place, I think we all would not have been found on this planet Earth. That means to say that what? Reproduction enables the continuity of the species generation after generation. So it's a continuous process that is happening generation after generation. And what is the significance? It enables or produces what? Helps in what? The continuity of the species generation after generation. And very important is what? What would happen if reproduction would not have taken place? I think we would not have seen the survival of the species or the survival of the population of the species on this planet Earth. So reproduction is meant for what? For the survival of the population of species on this Earth. So it is very, very important process, as I said, for the survival of the population of the species, or as I said, for the continuity of the species generation after generation. So what do you mean by reproduction? Let me brief up once again. It's a biological process where an organism will give rise to an young one, or otherwise called offspring, similar to itself. And what is the significance of reproduction? It enables the continuity of the species or the organisms generation after generation. As I said, reproduction is meant for what? Is meant for the survival of the population of the species on this planet Earth. Now let us know more about this very important characteristic feature of living organisms, that is reproduction. Now, as I said, do you think the reproductive process are of the same type? Do you think all the organisms are of the same type? No. For example, you come across unicellular organism like amoeba, then multicellular organisms like plants and animals. What is the mode of reproduction? It varies from an organism to organism. So as I said, the mode of reproduction that happens in organism is of two methods. One is called asexual method, the other one is called sexual method. Now what you may have a doubt. What is this asexual method and sexual method? Asexual method is a mode of reproduction. It's a kind of reproduction where a single parent produces the offspring, or young ones, also you can use a word called progeny, right? So what is asexual reproduction? Only single parent. Either of the one parent is involved. It is called uniparental. Then what is sexual mode then? Sexual mode is a type of reproduction which involves two organisms of two opposite sex. Very, very important. It is biparental. Why it is called biparental? Whereas here in asexual reproduction only one parent produces the offspring, whereas in case of sexual reproduction two parents are involved in the process of reproduction where they produce the progeny or the offspring. So this is single parental, that is uniparental, and this is biparental. And the offspring that are born through asexual reproduction are almost similar to the parents. So as they will not give rise to what? Variation. You may ask, which is more advantageous? In lower organisms, definitely asexual reproduction is advantageous, but in higher organism, sexual reproduction is very, very advantageous. Why? Because the progeny born through sexual mode of reproduction have a better survival rate when compared to the progeny produced through asexual reproduction, right? So the survival capacity is more enhanced in case of sexual reproduction than in case of asexual reproduction. Hope you have understood what are the two modes of reproduction. What is reproduction? It is a biological process where an organism produces the offspring or the young one similar to itself. What are the two kinds, or what are the two modes of reproduction? One is called asexual reproduction, the other one is called sexual reproduction. What is asexual reproduction? It is a mode of, or it is a kind of reproduction where only one parent produces the progeny or the offsprings, whereas sexual mode of reproduction is a kind of reproduction where two parents of opposite sex are involved in the process of reproduction where they produce the young ones. Hope you have understood, right? Now, as I said, there are many types of organisms existing on this planet Earth. We have discussed this in the last session, right? So, what are the other, for example, like fungi. Fungi belongs to which kingdom? All that I am going to teach you in the next coming classes. Fungi belongs to Mycota, kingdom Mycota. So this fungi will multiply and spread easily through asexual spores. So here, what are the units of reproduction? That is through asexual reproduction, spores. So these are they will disperse and they carry on the process of reproduction. So in fungi, it is through spores. Now let us come across yeast and hydra. Right? Hydra, as you know, it is a coelenterate. So yeast is a fungi. So what is a mode of reproduction? I think if you can see in this beautiful picture, this is a picture of Hydra. It is an aquatic animal, right? So this Hydra, yeast and Hydra reproduce by budding, whereas fungi reproduces through spores. Then what is the mode of reproduction in case of yeast and Hydra? By process of formation of a bud. You can see here, this is called as a bud. You may wonder, what is this bud? You would have heard about this word called bud. Bud is nothing but an outgrowth. From the parent body, there is an outgrowth. And why particularly this outgrowth takes place only in this particular region? And in this particular region, cell division will take place. Cell division will take place, leading to what? More number of cells. More number of cells. And this more number of cells will lead to outgrowth, and this outgrowth is called as a bud. And this bud will remain attached to the parent body till it is completely developed, just like a small baby. Until and unless it learns to walk, it will hold the hand of its mother. So once it learns walking, it will just leave away the hand of its mother and starts walking, right? In a similar way, until and unless the bud is completely developed, it remains attached to the parent body. Once it is completely developed, it detaches from the parent body, goes away from the parent body and leads an independent life. So until and unless it is matured. What do you mean by maturity? Developing the capacity to grow on its own. Without the help of mother, it can carry on its body functions. So that is called maturity. Until and unless the bud is completely matured, it remains attached to the parent body. Once it is completely matured, what will it do? It will detach, move away from the parent body like this and lead an independent life. Right? So this is called budding. So also you come across in yeast. This is an yeast cell. You can see an outgrowth like this. So it remains attached to the parent body till it is developed. See, you can see here it is completely developed. Then it detaches. So this is called as a bud. This is a yeast cell. So this is called as a matured bud. This is called as a developing bud. Developing bud, this is called as a matured bud. Right? So this mode of reproduction is nothing but called as asexual. Again, only one parent is involved. This is called asexual mode of reproduction. Hope you are understanding. Hope I am not confusing you all. Right? So what did I say? Reproduction is what? Reproduction is a very important biological process where an organism produces an offspring similar to itself, and reproduction is by two mode. What is the two mode? One is called asexual mode, the other one is called sexual mode. What do you mean by asexual mode? Only one parent is involved in the process of producing the offspring. Here two parents are involved in the process of producing the offspring, right? In fungi, how does it reproduce? Through asexual spores. In yeast and Hydra, by budding. So here this is a bud. Already I told you what is a bud. And in planaria, planaria is a flatworm. It belongs to platyhelminths. Anyhow, in animal kingdom, a chapter called animal kingdom, you will study about all the different types of animals. So this is called flatworms, where the body is flat, ribbon-like. So there is one very important process of reproduction called regeneration. What is it, regeneration? So if one part of the body is cut, so we will study about the type of reproduction in case of planaria. It is through regeneration. What is regeneration? So you can see the animal body like this. So one part of the body is cut. Here you can see one part of the body is cut. But this has the capacity to grow into new organism. New organism. You will understand better with an example of a human being. Suppose we cut our hands and legs. Do we get back our new hand and leg? Definitely not. If it was so, I think it would have been very nice. But that is not possible. So what do you mean by regeneration? Any lost part again it regains, regenerates, and hence that process is called as regeneration. That is, a fragmented organism regenerates the lost part of its body and becomes a new organism. So that mode of reproduction is called regeneration. Again, it is an asexual method. So what are the asexual method? One is through spore formation, one is through budding, one is through regeneration, and also cell division. Like unicellular amoeba, there the mode of reproduction is through cell division. One cell divides into two, and that is how the because it's a unit, only one cell is there, and that cell itself carries on all the activities of the life. So this is all about the asexual mode. So in certain fungi, like even filamentous algae and the protonema of mosses, they multiply by fragmentation. What do you mean by fragmentation? Again, fragmentation. If any, like for example, like algae, you can see the filaments like this. Continuous chain of filaments like this. Suppose this one cell is cut. This is called what? Fragmentation. Piece. Fragmented piece. And this piece itself will develop into a new organism. So this mode of reproduction is called fragmentation. This is called fragmentation. Hope you are following me, right? So what is it? Asexual mode is either through spore formation or through budding or through regeneration or through fragmentation. And in coming across in unicellular organisms like bacteria, then algae, like unicellular algae, then amoeba, reproduction is almost synonymous with growth, that is increase in number of cells. What do you mean by increase in number of cells? One cell divides into 2, 2 into 4, like that it goes on multiplying. So that type of division you come across in case of unicellular organisms like amoeba. Right. Hope you have understood what is reproduction and what are the types of reproduction, and also how the mode of reproduction, asexual mode of reproduction takes place in unicellular organisms. This is in filamentous algae, this is budding in yeast and hydra, regeneration in planaria, then the asexual spores in fungi. Here also I have explained about what is bud. Right. Hope you have understood the concept of reproduction. Moving on to the next very important characteristic feature called metabolism. I think I have explained in the previous session what is the advantage of being a multicellular organism, may it be a plant or an animal. We have millions of cells in our body, and these cells group into what? Into tissues, tissues into organs, organs into organ system, and different organs perform different functions. For example, heart in our body performs the function of what? Circulation of blood. Digestive system does the process of digestion. Respiratory system does the process of respiration. Excretory system does the process of excretion, and the nervous system does the conduction of nerve impulses from one part of the body to the other part, right? Coordination. So all there are different organs performing different functions. Put together all the internal processes. Actually we call this study of internal processes as physiology. So what do we mean by metabolism then? The sum total of all the physiological process that is happening in the body of a living organism is called metabolism. Or how do we define one more definition? The sum total of all the chemical reactions occurring in our body is called metabolism. So our body itself is like a chemical factory. A series of chemical reactions are happening. Like morning you have your breakfast, again it is broken down and energy is released. Afternoon again we'll have our food, again evening we'll have some snacks, night again we'll have our dinner. So imagine there's a continuous chemical process happening, and respiration continuously we are breathing, 24/7 we are breathing. So it is a continuous process, right? So the sum total of all the chemical reactions occurring in a body is called metabolism. Put together all the internal functions, we use the word called metabolism. And this is one very important characteristic feature exhibited only by whom? By the living organism. See how advantageous it is being living organism, right? So that is why we are all gifted by God. So that is the reason why we need to protect our life, and particularly at this time at this point of time where we all are prone to this coronavirus, we should make sure that we take care of ourselves. So stay home, stay safe. Now, what do you mean by metabolism? The sum total of all the chemical reactions occurring in our body is called metabolism. So as I said, even the plants, maybe the animals, fungi, microbes, all carry on this metabolism. It's a very, very important process to happen for survival. All this internal process need to happen. Imagine if heart stops functioning. Imagine if respiratory system stops functioning. What will happen? That's the end of an organism, right? So all these internal processes or metabolic processes put together is very, very important for the survival of an organism, right? For example, let me give an example of the metabolic process like photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is what? Metabolism is again of two types, anabolism and catabolism. Photosynthesis, you can give an example for anabolism. Photosynthesis. Here you can see photosynthesis is an example for anabolism. Respiration is an example for catabolism. You may wonder, what is ma'am telling about anabolism and catabolism? Metabolism involves anabolism and catabolism. What is anabolism? It's a build-up process, right? Catabolism is it is called as a destructive process, right? This is called as a constructive process. What do you mean by constructive process? Hope all of you right from your school days would have studied about photosynthesis, right? So what is photosynthesis? It is nothing but manufacture of what? Food. What are the raw materials? Sunlight, carbon dioxide, oxygen is evolved, then water. All these are the chlorophyll. All these are the very important components that are, or you can call them as the raw materials for photosynthesis. And what is the prepared food of plant called? Starch. The prepared food of plant is called starch. So this is a constructive process. We make use of raw materials like CO2 plus water plus chlorophyll plus sunlight to manufacture what? Starch. So this is a constructive process. Hence it is called anabolism. What do you mean by catabolism? Destructive process. Respiration. What do we take? That is the glucose C6H12O6 is broken down into CO2 plus H2O plus energy. So this CO2 goes back, as you know, CO2 for organism is a gaseous waste, and this is what picked up by the plants for photosynthesis. So this is called as a destructive process. So this is broken down. Here it is build up process. So all the raw materials are taken and to build up what? To build what? Food. What is that food? Prepared food of plants called? Starch. Hope you have understood what is anabolism and catabolism. All plants, animals, fungi and microbes exhibit metabolism. Example is photosynthesis in plants, digestion in animals. So digestion is also what? Whatever, it is nothing but what? Release, whatever food we have eaten, it is broken down into simpler substances and soluble substances, thereby what? Releasing energy. Then both in unicellular and multicellular living organism, there are thousands of metabolic reactions simultaneously taking place inside. So like may it be unicellular, though it is a unicellular, there are a series of chemical reactions happening, and of course in multicellular organism there are thousands of metabolic reactions happening. So what is metabolism? It's a very, very important characteristic feature of living organism, which is nothing but the sum total of all the chemical reactions occurring in our body is called metabolism. And for what is a classical example? As I said, metabolism is divided into two, that is anabolism and catabolism. Put together makes what? Metabolism. Anabolism is a constructive process, build up process. Example, photosynthesis. Catabolism is a destructive process. What is the example you are going to give? Respiration. Moving on to the next very, very important characteristic feature of living organism, that is cellular organization of the body. All of us, right from my beginning of this class, I am telling how advantageous it is to be a multicellular organism. May it be a plant or an animal, where we have different organs to perform different functions. So cellular organization of the body is one very important characteristic feature of living organism. So that is, the living organism body is made up of what? Cell. Cell is what? Cell is the basic unit of life, or you can call it as the structural unit of life. So what is cell? Cells are the basic unit of structure and function in living organisms. Like in multicellular organism, there are millions of cells. But what about in unicellular organism? Only one cell. Single cell, that itself will perform all the life functions. Don't you find amoeba surviving in spite of it having only one cell? Of course, it is able to survive. What makes it to survive? All the features that are required for the survival of the organism is inside the cell. So functions independently. Then in multicellular organism, we have various levels of organization. You may understand better. What are the 4 levels of organization you come across? One is called the cellular level. Then second one is called tissue level. 3 is called organ level. And 4 is called organ system level. A very good classical example for we are the organism, like animals and plants are the organism which have all the 4 levels, that is plants and animals. What do you mean by cellular level? Cells are there, but they don't divide further. For example, amoeba, right? So one single cell is there. So when the body is restricted to only the cells, cellular level, it is called cellular level. Cells, as I said, group into what? Tissue. This is called tissue level. All the organisms may be restricted only to this level. And group of tissue make a organ. This is called organ level. This is called tissue level. This is called organ level. Again, organs are grouped into organ system. And this is called organ system level. Here you can see the cell organelles. So the cells group into what? Tissues. Tissues into organs. Organs into organ system. And all the organ system put together make what? An organism. And this organism will carry on the activity of what? Life. Yesterday, I think in the previous session we studied what is living. It is nothing but a state of being alive. What do you mean by alive? That which carries on the activities of life, right? So life. So cells group into tissue, tissue into organ, organ into organ system, and organ system into organism. What we call it as life, right? Now, individual cells may perform specific functions and also work together for the survival of the organism. So, the cells become dependent on one another. Hope you have understood what is cellular organization. What is cellular organization? As I said, it is one of the defining, very important feature of the living organisms. Only the living organisms are made up of cells. So, what is a cell? Cell is the structural and functional unit of life. And what do we mean by cellular level? As you know, in some organism there is only one cell. For example, like amoeba. In some organism cells group into what? Tissue. So it is called tissue level. But in some organism, group of tissues make an organ level. So that is called organ level. And group of organs make an organ system. That is called what? Organ system level. And organ system level form what? An organism. Right? Hope you have understood. So here, as I said, cell into tissue, tissue into organ, organ into organ system. So cell is a very, and what is a structural and functional, what is a physical basis of life, physical basis of cell? That is protoplasm. Protoplasm is called the physical basis of life. There is no life without protoplasm. So you can call it as a living substance of a cell. So protoplasm is called as what? The living substance of a cell. Hope you understood a very important characteristic feature exhibited by the living organism. We should be proud that we are multicellular organisms, right? So we have a lot of advantages by being a multicellular organism, where we have different organs to perform different functions, and that is the reason we are able to carry on the activities of life so very meticulously. Consciousness, very important characteristic feature which is exhibited by the living organism, which is also called as what? Response to external stimuli. Brain, a very important organ of the nervous system. Just like heart is a very important principal organ, brain also is a very important organ, which is very much required to carry on the process of response to external stimuli. What do you mean by response to external stimuli? Like for example, there is a hot tawa. So it is very hot. By chance you touch it, immediately you withdraw your hand. So hot tawa is a stimuli and you withdraw your hand is called as a response. For example, a bus is coming in front of you. What do? We just move slightly away from the bus. Why? We know it is dangerous. It is going to kill us, right? It is going to run over us and we are going to die. So what do? We just move. So bus is called as a stimuli and we move away from in front of the bus, from the front of the bus, and that is called response. So all living organisms respond to external stimuli, or we can also use the word called irritability. Right? This is the only characteristic feature which is a very important characteristic feature exhibited by the living organism. So what is consciousness then? It is the ability to sense their surroundings or environment and respond to the environmental stimuli, which could be physical, chemical or biological. You will just come across a tiger. Do we go in front of a tiger? We know it is a very dangerous animal and it is going to kill us. So we move away from the tiger. That means to say what? Biological stimuli. It might be physical or it might be chemical or biological stimuli, right? So what do you mean by that? Consciousness is what? Is the ability to sense the surroundings or environment and respond to the environmental stimuli, which could be physical, chemical or biological. Even plants also respond to external stimuli. Like what? Like water, light, temperature and other like even the pollutants. Hope all of you might have come across a sunflower plant. You know the sunflower, the name itself, you know how it has got its name as sunflower, because you can see the flower turning towards the light. So light has an impact on that flower. So it is going to respond to the light. So wherever the light is there, suppose you keep inside, wherever that light comes, it moves towards that light. So that means what? Even plants also have exhibit this, what you call it as respond to external factors. All organisms from the prokaryotes to the most complex, that is, you call prokaryotes as the simplest organism and eukaryotes as what? The complex organism can sense and respond to environmental factors. A very important characteristic feature exhibited by the living organisms, right? So here you can see the brain. So all our activities are coordinated by the brain and we respond to external stimuli based on the instructions given by the brain cells. We do all this in a fraction of a second. Knowingly or unknowingly we'll be doing it. So we respond immediately, and it is all because of the very important system in our body called nervous system, which comprises of the central nervous system, that is the brain and the spinal cord. So what is consciousness response? Responding to external stimuli. Hope you have understood this very important characteristic feature of living organism. So far we have studied all the characteristic features, may it be like growth and development, metabolism, reproduction, cellular organization, consciousness. All these are the characteristic features exhibited only by the living organism, not by non-living organisms. Hope you have understood all the concepts what I have explained in today's session. As I said, biology is nothing but what? Full of life. Interesting concepts to learn, and the knowledge what you are going to gain by learning biology is not only helping you to pass out your PUC, but the knowledge of biology is going to help us throughout our life, because biology is what? Around us and within us. Hope you have understood all the concepts what I have explained in today's session. So I'll I'll be coming back with some more interesting concepts of the same chapter called Living World. Till then, goodbye and thank you.